So we're a few days into the Crucible League now, and we have gotten some pretty good skill trees on items. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience with Crucible Trees so far, what I'm doing, things to look out for, and things like that. So this is the bow that I'm using, but does it have a good Crucible Tree? What if you get a really good item, and it has not got the Crucible Tree that you need? So if I look at the tree, it does have what I need. It's got the all damage from Blast Rain, it's got intelligence, 12% damage if strength is below 100, 30% evasion and some accuracy, and it's got some flat damage. Now, this isn't a great Crucible tree, but this was also not the Crucible tree that came with the item. So how do we get that? And is there anything we can do to get a Crucible tree that we would like? So there's a lot of really good things that you can do with Crucible, and just spam looking at items is very useful. So I've picked up a lot of bows, and then when I have time and I'm on a character that I actually want to engage with Crucible on, I have to be a little bit careful because I'm in hardcore and they are very dangerous, but I can throw those in and look at the skill trees. So if I search for Crucible trees, all of these have Crucible trees already. And sadly, a lot of these are kind of low item level because I didn't have access to that many good item level bows. But ideally, for what I'm trying to do, I want at least item level 82. The reason for that is, for example, the carbonizing roll here, marked in red, that is tier 1 flat fire. And it's so much damage, but if it's item level 81 or lower, I just can't get that roll. So obviously item level 82 is very important for me, but depending on your item, it might end up being item level 83, item level 85, or item level 86, which is the highest. So keep that in mind when you're crucibling things. Now, I don't know if there's any specific strat with specifically targeting low items to sort of cut out a lot of the higher ones, but either way, we've had some improvements since launch where there are less downsides than before. So what am I looking for then? So I'd be looking for things like, for my build, the whole like global attack speed and less reduced damage. That's okay because my damage stacks infinitely because I'm poisoned. Whereas on explosive arrow, well, as soon as I have 20 arrows in the target, I can't get more damage than that. So it might be worse. This is another example of a bow that has the same skill tree with this node, but has nothing else useful. And the base bow is pretty good, but at least I have a backup. So what I end up doing then is I'm looking for bows that at least ideally have that, but also something easy and really good too, like global attack speed, area of effect seems to be really good for this. +1 gem levels or socketed by power would be really good. Like I'm trying to look for multiple bows, and then you start like merging them into each other to get like a perfect bow to craft on, because I probably won't keep this bow forever. I might risk just crucibling loads of trees into this bow because it is very nice. The stats are very good, and getting a better one for me on SSF might be incredibly hard. So it's going to depend on how many of those like geode maps I can accumulate, and the drop rate of that has been increased, especially if you're doing all the way to the highest power level in like level 80 maps and higher. They do drop at lower levels now as well. But what about exploring the skill tree and leveling it up all the way before transferring it? That does take an incredible amount of time, and it doesn't seem to give a large favorable outcome. From the small scale testing that's been done so far, and we haven't done any like crazy like 100 or 1,000, that's a slippery Jim job, and hopefully he will do things like that. But it doesn't seem like pre-allocating the nodes give a large incentive compared to what it kind of alluded to that it would do. It seems a little bit random. So I feel like the best outcome for me is going to be getting a lot of bows and slapping them together until something sticks. And ideally, if I'm able to get multiple bows that have a lot of the good stats, well, hopefully it'll end up eventually getting all of the good stats. And there are also really good things to use it on for future builds. Like, for example, say if you need a unique, a lot of people are trying to do champion kite shield. So for example, here we have a champion kite shield, and I have some crazy stats for an Aegis. So that is very cool because the Aegis, and I mean, you can look at it, right? Really nice cold rest, loads of good like block properties. And here I have more base armor, max cold rest, endurance charge on kill, and avoid being shocked. Now, this is incredibly good because if I'm using melding, it's basically the same as having just +3 max cold rest with no downside. So very strong. And what I could end up doing then is, for example, I could try Scour Chancing. And there is a small chance every time I do this that it turns into an Aegis. And while that's very, very unlikely to happen, another thing you can look for is there is a stat that you can get. And I actually had this early on. It was one of the first items I got on a short bow where it was turn into a unique item. And that is incredibly cool because now, after the last patch, if it turns into a unique item, it starts with a Crucible Tree. So you can get these Crucible Trees on uniques. So far, the only one that I've put a Crucible Tree unique on was I found a Mjolnir. And I was like, oh man, it would be really cool to do a Mjolnir build. I haven't played one in years. What if it gets a really cool tree? And you guessed it, I didn't. But still, it would have been really cool if I did. So far that's the only one I've put a tree on. And you end up finding these map things, and they are basically like 2 upsides and 2 downsides. And the way I've been doing them so far is basically like this. I open the map on my Pathfinder, I run past all the monsters because they are hecking scary. And while you do get rewarded for killing them, it doesn't feel like it's going to be rewarding enough to risk my character. So I just run past it, kill 3 monsters at the end, open the forge, and boom, combine some items. So that's been pretty great so far. I don't know if that's something they'll leave in or if they feel like the fact that we're missing out on all the drops is enough of a penalty. But yeah, do remember that it destroys the top one that you put in, it smelts it, and it infuses in the bottom one. The rolls in the bottom one does not get changed unless it says that it does in the forge. There are forges that will be corrupting the item, giving it an implicit, so keep that in mind. This is very, very strong if you don't want to risk bricking your bow with the rolls on it, but you will like maybe not get a good Crucible Tree. Guaranteeing an implicit on an item though could be very strong, so very, very interesting there. And as for like uniques to give items to and stuff, a lot of people are going to do things like Aegis will be very popular, or Sappho's Frame, even Rise of the Phoenix. There's a lot of Righteous Fire this league, and all of those could be pretty interesting for that. So that's a good use for them. And obviously just different weapons like Cospreys. Maybe people will play with Mjolnir, and we'll probably see some Brutus Lead Sprinkler as well. So there are cool things you can do. It'll be interesting to see what kind of cool things. I think later in the season, we'll have a video where we'll just have people showcase their coolest crucibles. Here's another example of a bow I got so far. Obviously a very, very basic bow, and I would want to craft more on this eventually, or just find an even better bow. I am basically just spamming bows at the moment because both of my characters use it, so it's such a win-win scenario. But I got +1 gems with plus base attack speed, so very, very good as a Toxic Rain starter bow. Another thing that some of you might have seen as well, but I want to make sure everyone has seen this, is the things where it's like sells for 3 divines, and also you can get this with whatever it sells for is doubled. Now this is incredibly strong because what you can do is you can use a split beast on this or a fractured fossil, because the rolls on the item doesn't matter, only the Crucible Tree does. And this will then double the amount of divines you get. You can then just do this and hope that you get it eventually in the future. That's probably what I will do on solo self-found, and make sure I use all my split beasts in this way. However, a lot of people might be thinking, man, this is not intended. Are you trying to get us banned, Zizaran? But as you can see here by grinding games, it is confirmed that this is intended, and that always made sense to me because the economy will sort of mold itself after that, and that means that yes, fracturing fossils and split beasts will be very expensive, but it does balance itself out in the economy and is a great way to bring divines into it in a mechanic that otherwise doesn't drop a ton amount of loot. But there's more. After you've split it, you can combine it into a new weapon and hope that it keeps both of the stats, and if it does, you get another 6 divines or 3 divines depending on what mods that are kept. So I don't know how risky and how worth it is to keep splitting it into new ones, but either way, getting 12 divines every time you get the 6 or 3 divine mod thing, very, very cool. So I know a lot of people are doing that. I've seen some videos from Grimro where he's like talking about it, and looks very much like something I want to find on a solo self-found to make sure that I have enough divines for crafting. So just make sure that you're aware that this is out there, and I'm sure there will be a lot of content from the software content creators talking about how to min-max this. Either way, I hope you guys enjoy the video. Would love to hear what kind of cool things you've been doing with Crucible, if you found any niche builds that work, and the way you've been playing with it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. Sub if you like it, but more importantly, try to die less than I do.